Okay, everyone, we'll start from the Mishnah 137, chapter 19. The name of the chapter is Abelezel the Milah. So we have previously learned in 132a, only a circumcision performed on the 8th day overrides the Shabbos prohibition against inflicting a wound, not one performed earlier or later. Our Mishnah discusses the liability of a person who inadvertently performed circumcision on Shabbos upon a baby that was either less or more than 8 days old. Mishol Shnei Tinokus, a person that had two babies. Echad Lomu Achar Shabbos, Echad Lomu B'Shabbos. One he needed to circumcise on Shabbos, and one he needed to circumcise on Sunday. He forgot and he circumcised the baby that is due after Shabbos. He did it on Shabbos, meaning he did a bris prematurely. Chayav is liable. Another case, seemingly the same. He had a baby that he should have circumcised before Shabbos, Friday, and one that he needed to circumcise on Shabbos, and he forgot, and he circumcised the one that was supposed to be circumcised on Friday, Shabbos. So he delayed his bris. According to Rabbi Menashe, he has to bring chatos. According to Rabbi Yeshua, he's exempt. That's the Mishnah. Yeah. Page 137, A2. Our Mishnah states in its opening case that all agree that he is liable. The Gemara now records that there is an Amoraic dispute as to how the Mishnah's opening case should read. Because the first case was supposed to add one baby for Shabbos, one baby for Sunday. And instead, he circumcised the Sunday baby on Shabbos. It says chayav. It doesn't say anybody disagrees with this chayav, with this liable. He's liable for chatos for having inadvertently desecrated the Shabbos. So Avuna Mazne Chayav, Avuna, in the opening statement of the Mishnah, all agree that he is liable. Avuna Mazne Potu. Avuna taught in the opening statement of the Mishnah that all agree that he is exempt. Okay. Avuna Masne Chayav, the Tanya Rama B'Shum L'Lazo. V'nechleku Rabbi Elazar B'Yeshua and Mishal Shnei Tinekes. Rabbi Elazar and Yeshua did not disagree if someone had two babies, two infants. Echad Lomu B'Shabbos, Echad Lomu Achar Shabbos. V'shoch Omar Shel Achar Shabbos, V'Shabbos Shu Chayav. No one disagrees that if he circumcised the baby that was supposed to be circumcised on Sunday, and instead he circumcised the baby on Shabbos, that is liable. Aman nechlek, where's the machlekes of Rabbi Elazar and Yeshua kicks in? Al mi sholu shnei tinokus. Someone had two infants. Echad be'erev Shabbos, echad b'Shabbos. One was supposed to be circumcised on Friday, and one was supposed to be circumcised on Shabbos. And he forgot and he circumcised the baby of Friday on Shabbos. So this is where the machlekes is between Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Yeshua. Rabbi Elazar says Chay, Rabbi Yeshua says Potter. Now, Ravuna will explain to us the basis of the dispute between Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Yeshua. Both Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Yeshua derive their perspective opinions only from the chatos for idolatry, which serves as the model for chatos liability. Rabbi Elazar sova kavetz kochav. Rabbi Elazar hold that this case is comparable to the case of idolatry. What's the connection between circumcision to idolatry? How is it comparable? Ma kavetz kochav machman savid. What does it say about idolatry in the Torah? You shall not do it. And when one does do it inadvertently, he is liable to a chatos. Achanami lo yishano, here too, in the case of a mistaken circumcision on Shabbos, it is no different, and he is liable. Don't do it. You weren't supposed to do it, and you did. But if you go with this logic, every kind of don't do is like idolatry. Torah says don't do it, and you did it. Rabbi Shua holds that there is a distinction. Also, the law of mitzvah. Then, in a case of idolatry, he is liable because no mitzvah is being performed. Hocha mitzvah. Whereas here, in the case of a mistaken circumcision on Shabbos, a mitzvah is being performed. Even though it was not supposed to do it, but bottom line, he did a mitzvah. He circumcised the baby. You can argue he did it before the time, after the time, but he did the mitzvah of circumcision. So maybe it's not comparable. Hence, this case of circumcision does not conform to the Chattas model of idolatry, and he is therefore exempt. Rabbi Yehuda taught in the opening statement of the Mishnah that all agree that he is exempt. Tanya, for we learned in Abayis Omar Rabbi Meir, Lo nechleku Rabbi Lezer Rabbi Yeshua al mishor shnei tinaikus. Rabbi Lezer Rabbi Yeshua did not disagree on a case of someone that had two babies. Echad be'erev Shabbos, echad be'Shabbos. One needed to be circumcised on Shabbos and one on Sunday. V'shoch achumol. No, erev Shabbos and Shabbos, meaning Friday and Shabbos. One baby he needed to circumcise on Friday and one baby on Shabbos. And he forgot and he circumcised. He confused the two. And he circumcised the Friday on Shabbos.
That's not so terrible.
Meaning he circumcised the baby on the 9th day.
Right. I mean, it's...
Well, once it's delayed, it should have been delayed to Sunday.
Right, I got that, but I mean...
But it says Shu Potu.
Right.
He said he's exempt. Aman nechleku. Concerning what case did they disagree? Machlekes comes in only when you had two babies, and one was supposed to be circumcised on Shabbos, and one was after Shabbos. So one for Shabbos and one for Sunday. And he made a mistake and he circumcised the Sunday baby on Shabbos. Rabbi Lezer declares he's liable to Chatos for violating Shabbos inadvertently. Rabbi Shua exempts him. And both learned it. They both learned it from idolatry. Rabbi Lezer, it's comparable to idolatry. Why? Just when it comes to idolatry, the Torah says, don't do it, you shall not do it. And when one does do it, inadvertently, he is liable to Chatas. Here too, in the case of mistaken circumcision on Shabbos, it is no different and he is liable. And Rabbi Yeshua holds that there is a distinction. Also, mitzvah. There, in the case of idolatry, he is not occupied with attempting to perform a mitzvah. Whereas here, in the case of a mistaken circumcision, he is occupied with attempting to perform mitzvah.
So the kavana is okay.
Mistaken idolatry is not a mitzvah. Mistaken circumcision is still a mitzvah.
Right.
He is occupied with attempting to perform a mitzvah. If you look at 26, he writes, he was occupied in trying to perform a true mitzvah, namely circumcising the infant that is supposed to be circumcised this Shabbos day. It was as a result of his preoccupation with the mitzvah that he mistakenly sinned by circumcising the infant whose circumcision was no mitzvah at all. Namely, the after Shabbos infant. According to Rabbi Yeshua, since the root of his error was different from that of the standard model of Chatos, This case is considered similar to the Malo case and is therefore not subject to a chatus. Pani Rabbi Chia, Oim Rabbi Meir, Lanecha Rabbi Lezer, Rabbi Yeshua. According to Rabbi Chia, the Machlekes brings Rabbi Meir to the Machlekes between Rabbi Lezer and Rabbi Yeshua, and Mishol Shnei Tinokus, concerning a case of someone who had two babies, Echad Lo Be'erev Shabbos, Echad Lo B'Shabbos, one for Friday and one for Shabbos. One needed to be circumcised Friday, and one needed to be circumcised on Shabbos. V'shoch ha'chuma u'mol shel Erev Shabbos be'Shabbos. He forgot and he circumcised the Friday baby on Shabbos. Shu chayav, that is liable. Aman nechleku, concerning what case they disagree. When did they disagree? According to Rabbi Meir, the machlekes between Rabbi Lezer and Rabbi Yeshua is about this case. He had two babies, one for Sunday and one for Shabbos. And instead he circumcised the Sunday baby on Shabbos.
Right.
Where it says Labot to Chatos, Rabbi Yeshua says Potter. Ashta Rabbi Yeshua Seifa, the Leiko with Mitzvah Potter. Oisha the Leiko with Mitzvah Mechayev. Rabbi Yeshua exempt from a Chatos in the latter case, where he did not actually perform a mitzvah, because the infant he mistakenly circumcised was less than 8 days old. It was supposed to be circumcised on Sunday. Therefore, the mitzvah of circumcision did not kick in. Reisha the COVID mitzvah mechaber, the first case where he did perform a mitzvah, because the infant he mistakenly circumcised had already passed its 8th day. Can it be that Rabbi Yeshua declares him liable? The school of Rabbi Menashe said in answer to this question, the first case is dealing with an instance in which he went ahead and circumcised a Shabbos infant on Friday. The Shabbos is in which case the Shabbos is not any longer given to being overridden, right? You can override Shabbos only if the baby was born the previous Shabbos. Therefore, even though he performed the mitzvah when he circumcised the Friday infant on the Shabbos, he is nevertheless liable. Seifa nitna Shabbos idochos. In the latter case, however, the Shabbos is still given to being overridden since he has not yet circumcised the Shabbos infant. Therefore, Rabbi Yeshua holds that he is exempt when he mistakenly circumcises the after Shabbos infant on Shabbos, because he had the permission to override Shabbos because he had a baby in front of him that needed to be circumcised on Shabbos.
Okay,
But in the previous case,
we had a Friday baby, we had a Shabbos baby that was circumcised on Friday.
So he's out.
So
He has no permission to override Shabbos, because his other baby needed to be circumcised on Friday.
But if he did it on Friday, the Shabbos baby on Friday, he did it early, but he didn't override Shabbos.
Right, but then he circumcised the Friday. He circumcised the Friday baby on Shabbos. He circumcised the Shabbos baby on Friday, and the Friday baby is circumcising on Shabbos.
So he did the Friday baby late.
No. Since he circumcised the Shabbos baby on Friday, Shabbos is not to be overridden anymore for him. He lost that opportunity. You need to, in order to override Shabbos, you need to have a baby available for you to circumcise on Shabbos. He did not have the baby available on Shabbos in the case of Friday, that he circumcised a Shabbos baby on Friday. Because Shabbos meaning...
Okay, so we have two babies. The Shabbos baby was circumcised on Friday, so that knocks out. For that one, he's not.
And the Friday baby, he cannot circumcise on Shabbos also,
because it's not bismana.
Right.
So then, when he does it, he.
But on the other way around, he had a Sunday baby and a Shabbos baby. So since he did the bris of the Sunday baby on Shabbos, he says he still had a baby that he's allowed to do the bris on Shabbos. He still has the capability of overriding Shabbos.
Yeah.
So since it was available to him, he sees it as less of a violation.
The moil, not.
Yeah, I'm talking about the moil.
Right.
The more violation is there when you didn't have a permission to override Shabbos. When do you have a permission to override Shabbos?
When it's bismana.
When you have a baby available.
Yeah.
Meaning a baby available is a Shabbos baby.
Right.
In the Friday, it doesn't have a Shabbos baby anymore. In the case of Friday,
Right.
because he killed it by circumcising the Shabbos baby on Friday.
Right.
So the Friday baby is no longer.
He's not a play.
Yeah.
Right.
It's because he's nitche.
Yeah.
You pushed him off.
Right.
You pushed off the bris, so you need to push it off till Sunday.
Right.
If it's not done on the 8th day, it could be done already on the 10th day. It doesn't have to be done
Right.
on Shabbos.
After that, it's like whatever.
But in the case of Shabbos baby, since he circumcised the Sunday baby first,
Yeah.
he's still allowed to override Shabbos. He still has that permission because the Shabbos baby is available there to be circumcised. Amar le Rav Ashi Rav Kahana, Rei Shana Menitna Shabbos Yidoch Legabi Tnagus Dalma. It says because Shabbos is always given to be overridden. He rules out this answer because he says there's always other babies in the world that are available to be circumcised on Shabbos. So Shabbos is given to being overridden in regard to other infants of the world whose time for circumcision is on Shabbos. So it's a question. He says, what is your answer? He says, in regard to this person, this is the answer to that question, this challenge. He says, for this person, he doesn't have another baby. It was not given to being overridden for that person, and he is therefore liable. Okay. I think it can happen in the case of twins that if let's say one born before Shkia and one born after Shkia.
Right.
So if you have a baby, let's say Shkia is at 8 o'clock, so a baby was born at 7:50, so his bris needs to be on Friday. Friday is 7:50 in the evening.
Right.
So his bris will be on Friday because he was born on Friday.
Right.
And if he was born at 8 o'clock, it's a Shkia already, so he was born on Shabbos.
Right.
So therefore his bris needs to be on Shabbos.
Except then you say it's been a shmoshes and you push it off to Sunday.
No, if you know for sure that it was Shkia, that's it. It could happen like 10 minutes or 20 minutes between one birth and the other, right?
Right. Okay. So you'll have Yom Kippur babies. You can have Yom Kippur. If somebody's born on Rosh Hashanah.
Yeah, my father was born on Yom Kippur.
No, but if he was born on Rosh Hashanah, then you'd have to have a Yom Kippur bris. Or I once went to a bris.
No, if you're born on Rosh Hashanah,
No, not Rosh Hashanah.
Rosh Hashanah, you have 10 days from Rosh
The
Hashanah.
rest of them that wouldn't be.
If you're
So
born on Sam Gedalia, your bris is going to be on Yom Kippur.
I went to a bris I think I went to two bris on fast days, so they made the bris right before the Tanis was out.
We had a bris on Yom Kippur in this show.
I don't think I was here for that. Maybe it was before I showed up. All right, Mishnah.
Following Mishnah delineates the various instances in which circumcision must be postponed until the 9th, 10th, 11th, or 12th day, because of a doubt as to whether the Shabbos was the child's 8th day.
Rav Hashem.
A child is sometimes circumcised on the 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, or 12th day, not earlier, no later. How is this? In normal circumstances, a child is circumcised on the 8th day. If he was born during twilight, he is circumcised on the 9th. Look at 35. Twilight is the period of time between sunset and nightfall. There's a legal question as to whether twilight should be judged the end of the preceding day or the beginning of the following night. Therefore, if a child was born, for example, on Sunday between sunset and nightfall, we are uncertain whether to consider him born on Sunday or Monday. So between sunset and nightfall is the problem.
Right.
Nightfall is probably like Tzeis HaKochavim is nightfall, right?
So there's
The Shkia is the
right. So I have a problem. Did I daven last night? 3. Whatever. Anyway, so when you daven by yourself, you gotta daven after it says after the stars come out, right? For Marav. So, but okay. So let's say the Shkia, like you said, Shkia is like 8:10 now or something, but like Shabbos ended 8:43 or something this week. So you couldn't daven. I couldn't daven Marav. Well, nobody could daven Marav till after that anyway for Shabbos after Shabbos. But not during. But I'm saying you have a half an hour. All I'm saying is a half an hour, right? That you could say is Ben Hashmoshes.
right. Oh, we'll see how it goes. But David is asking if you're circumcised before the 8th day, if it's an avera. It's a violation to circumcise before the 8th day.
It's not great, but I don't know. Let's see what the rabbi said.
So there's two things regards to mitzvah. There's the actual mitzvah and there's the mitzvah on its time, its appropriate
Right.
time. So remember, if you remember, we learned in Masechta regarding the Korban Pesach, Zvachim Chulin. We spoke about Korban Pesach. If somebody eats the Korban Pesach before the time,
Right.
or if someone shech the Korban Pesach before the time. So in the case of Korban Pesach, he doesn't do the mitzvah.
Right.
In this case, he did the mitzvah, but he might have to be poked.
Yeah.
But it was done with a blessing, with this. It's definitely a violation. It's definitely a violation.
Well, you got the same question about the people that on the Seder, they drink all the wine at one time.
Right. But this is why the Gemara speaks in cases where it's not so clear. If you're born in Sunday morning, there's no doubt. If born in Sunday afternoon, Monday afternoon, daytime, nighttime, it's not a problem. But you're born in like a very
In that half an hour or whatever it is.
that specific time. So he writes, if a child sometimes how does it work? So the Mishnah tells us he was born during twilight, which he said is between sunset and nightfall. So the Mishnah says it needs to be circumcised on the 9th day. Ben Hashmoshes Sherer of Shabbos. If he was born during the twilight on the eve of the Shabbos, meaning Friday evening, is circumcised on the 10th. What's the 10th? Says 36, he writes, on Sunday, since we're uncertain whether to count Friday or the Shabbos as the day of his birth. So his bris is pushed off. Meaning, since we're not sure if he was born on Friday or on Shabbos, it does not override Shabbos. So seemingly from where we see that only if it's for sure born on Shabbos, then it overrides Shabbos.
But my question is, how can you say that's the 10th? Because you could say it was the 9th. I could see saying.
No, because you're being pushed. You're now pushed off to Sunday.
I know, but okay, if
Shabbos is the 9th because he was born on Friday.
So Friday's either so Friday counts as the 8th, but not really, and Shabbos counts as the 8th, but not really.
No, Shabbos is counted as the 9th.
Okay,
and
so then it's the 10th. Okay.
Yom Tov le'achar Shabbos nimu le'achadoso. If in the previous case Yom Tov falls on the day after the Shabbos, then he's circumcised on the 11th. Again, the doubt. So, imagine he was born on Friday, in twilight zone Friday. You're pushing off to Sunday, right? We just said.
Right.
Pushed off. That's the 10th. But what happened if Monday is a Yom Tov? And we don't want to get into a doubt, so you push it off to Tuesday.
Okay.
Sunday is Yom Tov, so you push it off to Monday.
Okay, and here it's 2 days of Yom Tov. Let's suck this.
Right, so then you're going to push it off to Tuesday.
Right.
I think my son Yaakov had a bris on Yom Tov. But it was born for sure it was born on the 8th of Tishrei, so his bris was on Pesach. No, on Sukkot. In the Sukkah the bris was.
I missed it. I wasn't around for that.
Yom Tov Shabbos nimul le'achadoso. Shnei Yom Shloshon nimul shnei moso. Here he gives the example that you said. If it falls on Rosh Hashanah, right? So the bris was, let's say Rosh Hashanah is Sunday,
right,
and Monday,
right.
So his bris will be on Tuesday because of the doubt,
right.
So that already Shneim also 12. In the case of a sick child, we do not circumcise him until he becomes healthy. Even if he is now dangerously ill, we postpone the circumcision for fear that in his weakened condition, since he is weak, it might endanger his life. So we just push off the bris until further notice, until we know for sure that he is healthy. Once the fever has left him, so we give him all of 7 days for him to recover before circumcising him. So if a baby had fever, we wait. Once he's healthy, we wait 7 days, and that's. Do we require an interval of 7 24-hour periods, meaning 7 full days? Tashma, come learn the proof from the following Baitan. Tani Luda. Luda to te Baisan. The day of his recovery is the same as the day of his birth. My love, is it not that this comparison means to teach? Just as in the case of the day of his birth, we do not require an interval of 7 24-hour periods before circumcising him. So too, in the case of the day of his recovery, we do not require an interval of 7 24-hour periods before circumcising him. Rather, he can be circumcised on the morning of the 8th day following his recovery. The Gemara answers, Loi, no, Odif Yem of Osim involved. The day of his recovery is equal to, and even greater, treated more stringently than the day of his birth. With the day of his birth, we do not require 7 24-hour periods, whereas with the day of his recovery, we do require 7 24-hour periods. So we're very careful with the days of his recovery. We want 24 hours periods. New Mishnah, Elo and Tzitza Magban Samila, these are the shreds that impede the validity of the circumcision. If he didn't cut properly and you need to do corrections. Bosar Chefes flesh that covers the larger part of the corona, and one whose circumcision left him with such shreds may not eat truma, is still considered orel, uncircumcised, that he cannot eat truma. If a child was fleshy, that's a nice word for fat, and gave the appearance of being uncircumcised even after his foreskin was removed. He should rectify it because of the appearance of wrongdoing. It doesn't look like he is not circumcised. If he circumcised but did not uncover the circumcision, it is as if he did not circumcise. It says in number 1, he removed the foreskin but did not split the membrane underneath it and pull it back to expose the corona. This procedure is known as priya. The requirement for priya is derived not from the laws of circumcision given to Avraham, but from Yeshua 5:2, Yavam is 71b, according to Rashi, first approach. Here Rashi renders pora, as he uncovered the corona, whereas on 133a, Rashi explains it as meaning he tore the membrane that covers the corona. So the bottom line, the Mishnah tells us that if he circumcised, did not uncover the circumcision, it's as if he did not he did half a job, he did not do it. Amar Ravina, and that's what the Mishnah said before, that he doesn't eat truma if he's not circumcised properly. He still has shreds. Amar Rabbi Avina, Amar Rabbi Menashe. This term refers even to flesh of the foreskin that covers the larger part of only the height of the corona. If a child was fleshy, was fat, an infant who is thickly coated with flesh, we examine him as follows. When his membrane is erect and he appears circumcised, doesn't have to be circumcised. No corrections are needed. But if not, Masnita Tono, it was taught in a Vice of Shin Gamliel Eimer, Shin Gamliel says, Kotam Suavoso, an infant who is thickly coated with flesh, Rhino is called Mashimiskash Niramol. We check. As long when the membrane is erect and he does not appear circumcised, then he has to be circumcised. If not, he does not need to be circumcised again. My benah, what is the difference between them? There's a difference between them in a case where to some extent he appears circumcised, but to some extent he does not appear circumcised. The one introduces the next discussion with a quote from the Mishnah. If he circumcised but did not uncover the circumcision. Vaisa records the various blessings and prayers recited at circumcision. Tanu Rabbon Namo Loimer. The circumciser says, Asher Kiddushonu b'mitzvosov v'tzivonu ala milah. Blessed are you, Hashem, our God, King of the universe, who has sanctified us with his commandments and commanded us regarding circumcision. Avia ben Emer, father of the child, says, Asher kiddushon mitzvos v'tzivon lachnisu b'brisa shel Avraham Avinu. Until this very day, we said, Hashem commanded us to bring him in the covenant of Avraham, our forefather. I am remembering those who stand in the those who are present at the bris. They say, "Kashem shenichnas lebris, kach ikonos teruchu b'maisim tovim." Just as he entered into the covenant, so he may enter into the study of Torah, the marriage canopy, and the performance of good deeds. And the one who designated to recite the blessings says, "Asher kidash yedid mi beten, chok b'she'eroi som," who has sanctified the beloved one from the womb, chok b'she'ero som, v'tzetzov chosam be'ois bris kodesh, placed the mark of the decree in his flesh, and sealed his offsprings with the sign of the holy covenant. Al ken b'schar zois keil chai chelkeinu. Therefore, as a reward for this, O living God, our portion, our rock, give the command to rescue the beloved of our flesh from destruction. Leman berisoi asher som b'vsoreinu, for the sake of his covenant that he has placed in our flesh. Baruch atah Hashem, koires haberis. Blessed are you, Hashem, who establishes the covenant. Amol esagir meimer, one who circumcised convert, says, the same bracha in the beginning. And one who is designated to recite the blessing says, who has sanctified us with his commandment to circumcise the converts, and to draw from them blood of the covenant. For without blood of the covenant, heaven and earth would not endure. Shenema, if not for the covenant of day and night, the statutes of heaven and earth I would not have established. Blessed are you, Hashem, who establishes the covenant. Amolas avodim, the one who circumcised the slaves, oimer asher kiddushonu b'mitzvos v'tzivonu ala milah, is to say the same bracha ala milah. V'amvorech oimer, and the one who says the brachas asher kiddushonu b'mitzvos v'tzivonu lo mulas avodim, one who has sanctified us with his commandment to circumcise the slaves. Ulaatif mem dam bris, and to draw from them blood of the covenant. Shilmod dam bris chukashma v'ozis kaimu, for without the blood of the covenant, heaven and earth would not endure. Shenemar im lavisi v'lai chukashma v'ozis samti, if not for my covenant of day and night, the statutes of heaven and earth I would not have established. Baruch Hashem keiris habris, blessed are you, Hashem, who establishes the covenant. Adon alocha, blessed the milah, we shall return to you, blessed the milah. And with that, we completed chapter 19, and thank God we're starting chapter 20. New Mishnah. And this chapter is called toiling, hanging. Yeah, hanging. The first Mishnah of this chapter discusses the permissibility of performing certain labors on Shabbos and Yom Tov in the preparation of food. We may suspend a strainer on Yom Tov, but not on the Shabbos. The Mishnah refers to a strainer through which wine is poured to filter out its dregs. Dregs. The strainer is similar to a porous sack whose bottom comes to a point. The bottom of the sack is placed into a container, and the sack's narrow opening is stretched tightly around the rim of the container. The wine is then poured through the strainer and into the container. Filtered wine enters the container, while the dregs remain behind in the strainer. Although suspending, literally hanging, such a strainer constitutes making a temporary tent or oihel, an act normally prohibited even on Yom Tov as a tolda of a melacha, as a derivative of the melacha of building, secondary to the labor of building. Rabbi Elazar permits it here on Yom Tov if the strainer is to be used to strain wine for Yom Tov use, when there is a special dispensation granted for preparation of food. However, where there is no such dispensation, Rabbi Elazar agrees that one may not suspend a strainer. Rabbi Elazar, we may suspend the strainer on Yom Tov, but not on Shabbos. And we may pour into a suspended strainer even on Shabbos and certainly on Yom Tov. I guess suspended was already there. We may not suspend strainer on Yom Tov, and certainly not on Shabbos. And we may not pour into a suspended strainer on Shabbos. And we may, but we may pour into a suspended strainer on Yom Tov. So we see the rabbis are more stringent than Rabbi Elazar. Rabbi Elazar permit the suspension of strainer on Yom Tov, even though it involves the construction of temporary tent. The Gemara notes that this does not confirm with a position known to be held by Rabbi Elazar elsewhere. Rabbi Elazar himself holds that we do not even add a temporary tent onto an existing tent on Yom Tov. Would he then permit constructing a temporary tent even initially? If he prohibits constructing a temporary tent on Yom Tov, how much more so that he would prohibit constructing initially a tent? Maihi, a window shutter. What happened with the window shutter? When it is attached to the building by a rope, and the rope is so short that the shutter is suspended in the air when not in place. We may shutter the window with it on Shabbos and Yom Tov. However, if the shutter is not suspended in this manner, we may not shutter the skylight window with it. It is rabbinically prohibited to do so, even though the shutter is placed over the window only temporarily. When the sages say, in either case, we may shutter the window with it, because the addition to the structure is only temporary. Rabbi said in the name of Yehochanan, both Rabbi Elazar and the sages agree that we may not erect even a temporary structure initially in Yom Tov and Shabbos, and it need not be said that this is forbidden on Shabbos. If they disagree only whether one is permitted to make a temporary addition to an existing structure, such as in the case of a shutter. And in such a case, Rabbi Elazar says we may not even make a temporary addition to a building on Yom Tov. And it need not be said that it is forbidden on Shabbos. While the sages say we may make a temporary addition to a building even on the Shabbos. And it need not be said that we may do so on Yom Tov. This Mishnah clearly indicates that Rabbi Elazar prohibits even temporarily adding to an existing structure. How then can we permit here the construction of a strainer on Yom Tov, which creates a temporary tent initially? Rabbi Elazar Sovolak Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Elazar holds like Rabbi Yehuda, who would permit such labor on Yom Tov if it were performed in the process of preparation of food. Tanya, and by Yom Tov and Shabbos, what's the difference between Yom Tov and Shabbos? There's no difference between Yom Tov and Shabbos, Ela Eichel Nefesh B'Levad, except in regard to food preparation alone. Rabbi Yehuda Matir Machshir Eichel Nefesh. Rabbi Yehuda permits even acts which are preliminaries of food preparation. Rabbi Yehuda maintains that a labor which is a preliminary of food preparation, such as the placing of the strainer, would be permitted on Yom Tov. Rabbi Elazar's ruling in our Mishnah is a reflection of his view. Maybe we can say that Rabbi Elazar permits such preliminary labors only concerning preliminaries which would not have been done before Yom Tov, which could not have been done before Yom Tov. But concerning preliminaries which could have been done before Yom Tov, however, did you ever hear that they are permitted in his opinion? Clearly not. Rather, he too agrees that such preliminaries must be performed before Yom Tov. If so, Rabbi Yehuda's opinion cannot explain Rabbi Elazar's ruling permitting the suspending of a strainer on Yom Tov, since this is a preliminary which could have been performed before Yom Tov. Perforce, we must say that the view of Rabbi Elazar is indeed greater, is more permissive than that of Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Elazar is even more lenient than Rabbi Yehuda, for he permits performing even preliminaries which could have been performed before Yom Tov. When sages said we may not suspend a strainer on Yom Tov, and it need not be said that it may not be suspended on Shabbos. The Gemara discusses to what degree suspending a strainer is prohibited according to the sages. Ibalu, the scholars of the academy inquired, Tolo mai, if one unlawfully suspended a strainer, what is the law according to the sages? Is he biblically or rabbinically liable? Amar Yosef, Tolo chayv chatos. One who unlawfully suspended a strainer is liable to a chatos offering. It says in number 20, Rabbi Yosef rules that suspending a strainer is a biblical violation according to the sages. One who does so inadvertently on the Shabbos is liable to a chatos offering. Amar la'abal ma'ato tolo kuzo besikto. But now, if one were to suspend a jug from a peg, achinami de michayv, would it also be so that he is liable? Surely not. Why then should one be biblically liable for the construction of a temporary structure such as a strainer? It is rabbinically prohibited to suspend a strainer. The rabbis prohibited this temporary construction so that one should not act in the manner in which he acts during the week.
But if you had set this up before Shabbos or Yom Tov, you could still use it.
According to Rabbi Elazar.
I mean, if it was
Ruchim to you.